Hey guys, welcome to the 35th episode of the Learning Podcast. And if you're unsure, it's a Singaporean podcast dedicated to learning something new from every single guest on this show. And today I have a friend who I've known for a couple of years right now. I think it's almost a decade. I met her in 2011 and her name is Xiaohan. Xiaohan, thanks so much for joining this podcast.
Hi, thanks very much for having me.
A little context about Xiaohan, right? She is a lawyer. So this podcast, essentially, there'll be two themes that I would like to really talk to her about: the realities of how it is like being a young Singaporean lawyer, and as well as her thought process on how and why she decided to embark in law as her main career in a sense. And I think that there isn't really a lot of materials online because I think like law firms are like, I don't know whether it's like a legal thing, like marketing wise. I actually went to search out some YouTube channels. There's actually a Singaporean lawyer doing YouTube marketing, but other than that, I couldn't find any other material. So I just wanted to have a conversation with Xiaohan on how it is like being a lawyer. One of the motivations of why I wanted to ask her to be on this podcast is that I teach piano. One of my piano students actually asked me, I asked my piano student, what do you want to be when you grow up? Then she said she wants to be a doctor. Okay, not a lawyer, but that sparked some interest in me. Like, would there be any materials or videos that, let's say, a 15-year-old or 16-year-old or even an 18-year-old, a student in JC could refer to in terms of deciding whether to do law as his or her career? Because I think that like having some form of marketing materials in the sense about what the career is like from a young professional who has been in it for a couple of years right now will be helpful in the eyes of, let's say, someone interested. And I'm also interested to talk about, like, let's say, was there like a big difference in expectations of what she expected the career to be and what she's currently experiencing right now? The second major theme that I would like to ask Xiaohan is the thing special about Xiaohan, right, is that she has done something that not many people has done. Okay, she has volunteered in the SAF Corps, and if I may share the story very shortly, right, I was charged by the Singapore Army for not taking my physical fitness test, and I went to, I think this is CMPB. It's an army camp. Then that's where I bumped into Xiaohan, where she was volunteering for the SAF Corps and she was doing a health checkup. Then I was like, oh, I'm getting charged. Then she told me she was volunteering there. So there's a little bit of disjunct there. But back to the main topic, right? I'm just very interested to hear from her perspective in terms of how it is like volunteering in the SAF. For overseas listeners out there, if there is any, right, it's essentially it's compulsory for males to be enrolled in the Singapore Army, but for females, for ladies, right, it's an optional thing to do. They can do it, and I think I myself, I'm not even sure about the nitty-gritty details. I think it's a 2-week program, or if longer, and I'm not sure if there's any subsequent commitment ahead, but I think that this will be a very interesting conversation from her perspective of having went through it, because she's the only one that I know who have went through this program. So I think it will be interesting to see from her perspective of how it's like. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Xiaohan, for those listeners that don't know who you are, could you give a quick introduction about yourself?
Oh, okay, sure. Thanks very much, Jiangjun, for having me on your podcast. Where do I begin? I guess since this this episode is going to be about my time as a lawyer, I'll just introduce a bit of my background first. I graduated from the NUS Faculty of Law in 2018, and afterwards I did my Part B exam, which is the bar course in Singapore. And then I started work as a trainee in Raja & Tan Singapore LLP. Just a disclaimer here, any opinions expressed by me in this podcast episode are that of mine personally, and do not in any way represent that of my employer, or even of the law fraternity in general. So I started work in R&T in last year, January, that's 2019, January. To pass the bar in Singapore, you have to do 6 months of training. So I did that. And then afterwards, I was called to the bar in August 2019. So I'm still very much a baby lawyer. I really, I think, have a very limited view of what the legal industry is, because I've only been in it for like less than 1.5 years now. But I'm very happy to share what little I know. Sometime last year, in June last year, I went for the SAF Volunteer Corps, as Jiangjun mentioned. It actually, timing-wise, it actually coincided very nice, because just as my training at R&T was coming to an end, that was the scheduled intake for the SAF VC basic training exercise. It's held every year, March, June, and I think October, unless COVID happens. So I'm not sure what's happening this year. It was a 2-week stint, and I'm sure I'll share a lot more about it later.
Got it. Okay, so going all the way back, right? I'm just interested, at what exact moment did you decide that being a lawyer was something for you? Did you consider anything else in general? Or what was the thought process? Was it more of like a family thing? Was it your sibling thing? Was it like an Asian thing whereby you must be a doctor, lawyer, engineer in that sense? But yeah, just your thought process in terms of deciding that I wanted to go to law school.
Yeah, so when I was in JC, I was an arts kid. I took 3 humanities. I didn't do any sciences. So I think that naturally sort of eliminated certain avenues. Like I probably wouldn't be able to get into any sort of engineering or medical or science faculty. It kind of really just narrowed my choices to, I think, business, arts, or law. At that time, I was more interested in arts or law. So that's really where the decision lay. I'm not one of those people who always wanted to do law. I have a few friends who's always wanted to be lawyers from when they were very young. For me, it was just like after graduating from JC, I just had these options before me, and I just thought, law is definitely the more practical choice. And I guess at that stage, I only had a very limited understanding of what being a lawyer truly was, and I think the main draw of it was being able to go through a fairly rigorous curriculum, one that would challenge me, and one that I knew would open, various avenues to me in the future. That's not to say if you do an arts degree, you wouldn't, have as many opportunities. It's just that I think doing a professional degree like law opens that avenue up to you. And it, you just have more opportunities to consider, because it's a professional degree, and it's, I guess, seen as, it's more well regarded, in that sense. So it was a very practical decision that I took, and I was 18 when I made this decision.
I mean, it seems like you have arrived at this conclusion by yourself. Was there any other conversations that you had with industry people, with your parents, with siblings, or was it from what I'm hearing, it's you arrived at this conclusion from yourself? Was there any external things, or it was mostly based on your research and reasoning that you chose law?
I had the opportunity to do a very, very, very short law internship when I was in JC. It was like a
internship in JC. Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
It was a 1-week stint. It was organized, I think, by the Singapore Academy of Law. I think they still run the program every year. I think having the internship experience gave me a very small glimpse into what working in a law firm would be like, and it. I enjoyed talking to my mentor, who was assigned to me for that particular internship, and she did share with me, she did share with me that I think she enjoyed what she was doing, and I, at that time, small me, found her pretty cool. So that was part of it.
In terms of the differences in law school, like SMU Law, NUS Law, I mean, it's not to have a school debate or whatever, but would you mind sharing those insights so that perhaps there's someone out there who could make that kind of decisions and just start process of doing their homework? So,
differences between law schools. I think I will start with what I enjoyed about the NUS Law program. NUS, as far as I know, this is during my time, which is I graduated 2 years ago. NUS has a very wide diversity of modules. That was the main reason why I decided NUS over SMU, because at the time when I matriculated, SMU's focus was mainly on corporate and commercial law. I really don't know if they've since expanded, but international law was a huge part of what I learned in NUS. I actually spent quite a lot of my semesters doing international law. I am not sure if SMU had the option, but I do recall at the time when I was trying to decide between the two schools, right, the diversity of modules in NUS was a lot less you would find it's not that focused on the corporate and commercial law, and it's about a whole other range of things. Yeah, that's one thing that I enjoyed about NUS. The faculty is great. I really, really had some pretty awesome teachers, like shout out to Prof. L. Wong. And I also I guess the other thing about NUS is that there's the option of living on campus, which if you're a law student kind of sucks because the law campus is a 30-minute bus drive away from the NUS living facilities, which were at UTown or in Hall. But I think that's an option that you might not get in SMU. I'm not very sure if that has changed, but that was definitely a draw.
If I may have one step back, right, in terms of your expectations of NUS Law prior when you enter it and after finishing it, right, what was there any big difference in the things that you expected that were true or false in the end?
Wow, there was a lot more mugging than I expected.
Okay, so basically just a lot more studying.
Yeah, the first 2 years. So how an NUS Law curriculum works, which I think is similar to SMU, is the first 2 years are set modules. Every single law student has to take the same modules, and it's at the same intensity. And it kind of decides your job as well, because a lot of law students start looking for jobs in year 2. So you're going off your year 1 and 2 grades to apply for your job, or rather to apply for your training contract. So it was like a lot. I don't really recall having that much free time in my first 2 years. And that was quite sad, because I always thought university was going to be like the best time of your life.
Was it the best time of your life?
It was, but maybe year 3 and 4.
Got it. So when it comes to, let's say, looking out for early signs in terms of the kind of advice that you would give, let's say, someone considering to take on law, how would you know that one is suited to be a lawyer in a sense?
Oh, okay.
Now that having went through this whole process, right, what would you say to someone who is considering this path?
Okay, I think we have to distinguish being a law student and being a lawyer. You might really love being a law student, right? And I have a lot of friends who really, really enjoyed studying law and their time in law school, but they might not have chosen to go into practice because the considerations are very, very different. So maybe we'll start with being a law student. Is that, yeah?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I think that transitioning, I think just to start off, if you're transitioning from JC to being a law student, then I think you would have to consider whether or not you enjoyed subjects like GP, or if you took history, then history, because this is basically what you do as a law student. You write essays, a lot of essays, and you make a lot of arguments, which is basically, like a enhanced version of GP. You would also need to enjoy reading. You need to enjoy being able to read different opinions and sort of come to a conclusion about those opinions. You can't like sit on the fence. Yeah. Maybe I'll just, let me just go a bit further into that. In Singapore, it's a common law jurisdiction. Okay. And I'm explaining this because I think most lay people may not understand. How law is made is judges will decide cases. Let's say today I punch Jiang Jun, right? And then I get a sentence, let's say 5 years. Okay, I'm obviously not a criminal lawyer. This is just a purely hypothetical example. But under these circumstances, I got 5 years as a sentence. How common law works is that they take this as a precedent, and then the next time somebody comes along with a similar case, the judge will look at previous case precedents that have been decided by previous judges, and he will say, okay, in this case, this person got 5 years, and so in the next case, because the circumstances are similar, then I will apply the same principles. So that's the common law as best as I can describe it. So when, as a law student, right, what a lot of your time is spent reading judgments by a variety of, you have English judges, Singapore judges, and then you sort of have to think of how to synthesize a rule or synthesize a certain argument based on everything you've read. And yeah, that requires, and then you have to regurgitate, then you have to memorize that and then regurgitate that in the exam. So it requires you to really, really like reading and writing. That's all I can say. So if you hated GP, you probably don't do law.
Got it. Okay, I think I have a good understanding of it, right? Going back to NUS law in general, right? Can I ask just, do you have any general regrets from NUS law? Given you, because like you say, right, university is supposed to be the best time of year, and I'm just getting the sensing that because like law school is just so academically heavy, right? That it may not be the best years of your life, right? But in terms of that period, right, is there any regrets that you have?
Yeah. Okay. So I don't think I have any regrets. I do have some pieces of advice though. One would be don't give up on your hobbies. So like fun fact, Zhang Jun and I met in Chinese orchestra. He plays the Chinese flute, the dizi. I play the shell, which is a Chinese mouth organ. And I think it's very, very helpful to have a hobby outside of school where you can kind of feel like, there's a place where you belong and there's a place where you can not feel stressed out and you don't feel like to live up to certain expectations. So yeah, I had the good thing about being at university is that you can sort of organize your timetable in a way that suits your own personal schedule. So I was still able to take part in a lot of my musical activities. Yeah.
Got it. Are there any other pieces of golden nuggets? Golden nuggets. Golden advice. Golden wisdom of nuggets.
And let me think. I feel like the advice that I've given so far is not directly related to law school. It's like very general. Like anyone going to university shouldn't do these things.
I mean, would it, because having hobbies in a sense is like a just a outlet of all the academic stress. That's why I think that like to have not your whole life centered on just law itself. Because if you overly fixate your time on it, you may just go crazy. So it just by diversifying your attention in a sense, right? Can I ask, in terms of people who don't practice law, right? I mean, I know you're definitely a practicing lawyer, but you talk about the differences between a law student and being a lawyer, right? I mean, why would someone be a law student and not be a lawyer? And from your perspective, how would that knowledge translate into other careers that they might pursue?
Yeah. Okay. So I think there are some statistics by the Law Society of Singapore and also generally you will find that the legal industry around the world doesn't retain people very well. So one problem that we do face in the industry is that a lot of people leave after, I think in Singapore, after 2 or 3 years, I can't remember what the exact statistic is, but it's quite a substantial number of people who leave the practice. In my very limited experience, people that I know who have left the practice end up in various places. F&B is one.
When you talk about F&B, is it like being like an advisor law, or is it F&B in their own business? Anything related to law or?
No, absolutely not. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely not. Is it?
Yeah, I know 2 people who have opened their own F&B business. Yeah. I'm trying to think. I think a few people end up going to the government. I think policy type positions are quite suitable for someone who has a law background. Trying to remember where most of my friends end up. Okay, a substantial amount of people also end up becoming in-house counsel for companies. This is still legal, but we still term it like leaving practice because when we refer to practice, we mean you work for a law firm. A lot of people leave law firms to join companies as their in-house legal counsel. So your in-house would tell you, okay, what I think the in-house does, obviously I'm not one myself, is that the in-house safeguards the interests of the company that he or she works for and renders internal legal advice to the company on, what should be done. Yeah.
So technically,
it's
is it right to say that not all in-house legal counsels are lawyers? Okay, what's the definition of a lawyer is that you pass the bar, right?
um well, yes. Okay, the reason why I'm hesitating is that we have a Legal Profession Act which actually defines what a lawyer is. I cannot remember off the top of my head what the actual definition is, but yeah, you do have to you have to pass the bar. I think that's a basic requirement.
So it's not possible to be an in-house legal counsel when you haven't passed the bar.
I think
the reason why I'm
yeah.
asking is because I'm also like sometimes in my work I need to liaise with my company's lawyers, right? And I'm just thinking from their perspective of their backgrounds because honestly, the only thing that I do with them, right, I'm just like writing the SOV statement of work for the kind of client work that I do, right? Then okay, can you just look at it? Like, so I'm not sure what goes on their end and like what's their background. So maybe you could help me shed a little light on that.
Yeah. Okay. What I know about in-house is that I don't think you need to have a bar qualification. And the reason why I say this is because a lot of MNCs are headquartered, their APAC headquarters are in Singapore, and their in-house may be in-house for not just Singapore, but in-house for the region, APAC region, or in-house for like ASEAN, for instance. You would very, very rarely find someone who is qualified in more than one or more than two jurisdictions. So I like, let's say Facebook, okay, I better not name companies. Let's say company A, right, has a headquarters, has APAC headquarters in Singapore, and they have regional legal counsel based in Singapore, and this person is Singapore qualified. But this person might also be asked to give general legal advice on contracts or matters happening outside of Singapore's jurisdiction, because they are APAC regional counsel. Yeah, I honestly think there's no strict requirements per se on how a person becomes in-house counsel. I think as long as the company believes that you are able to render quality legal advice, I think they will trust your advice. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, sorry to ask you so many questions about in-house legal counsel, right? Going back to, okay, one last question about this in-house counsel, right, is, if I may be very frank, right, is there a big compensation difference between in-house counsels and practicing lawyers?
Wow.
From your understanding.
Honestly, I think it's very, very comparable. I think it's I think one of the reasons why a lot of people leave practice to join in-house is because the pay gap is not huge. I do actually think that being an in-house can be more profitable than being a practicing lawyer. That's anecdotal lah. Based on what I've heard from some friends, sometimes their pay is higher than a practicing lawyer of their same batch, right? That's because during your negotiations with the company that you go to, you're able to negotiate a higher salary, or you have certain qualities that a company would reward you for. So I would think that there's not a huge pay difference, and the the work-life balance is definitely a lot better. So that's why a lot of people leave.
What are the common misconceptions about lawyers?
Well, that's tough because I feel like because I'm a lawyer myself, right? So I tend to sort of like filter out the misconceptions.
Oh, right. I see.
Let me think. There was one time a relative. Well, this is very personal to me, but there was one time I got into an argument with a relative, right? And
oh my, you don't argue with a lawyer.
No, it's not. I mean, well, no, it's not that, right?
Okay, yeah.
So I got into an argument, and then this relative is a very hot-tempered person, and then at some point he just also this was a text. It was an argument over text, and then at some point he just said "crooked lawyer" to me, and then I felt very like, okay, there's no way to deal with any kind of argument, right? Like, I think as most people know, if you are in an argument, you do not personally attack the person that you're arguing with. But it was very sad for me because like this person is not personally attacking me per se. He's attacking my career. And it kind of reveals a sort of perception that he has about not just me, but also, the people in my industry, my colleagues, my friends. And wow. Then I was like, oh my God, I cannot. I mean, bearing in mind that this person's a relative, so it's not somebody that I can just brush away and say like, okay, we are no longer friends, you know. So yeah, it was quite hurtful. Yeah.
Got it. Oh my gosh, no one argues with Xiaohan. No one argues with Xiaohan. Can I ask, I'm totally not sure about the career route of a lawyer, right? Like, what is a career route like? Will you one day be... Honestly, right now, I had this conversation with you, but honestly, it didn't get into me. So for those listeners out there, could you paint like just a generic career path upwards? Will you eventually be like the chief... I don't know.
Chief lawyer.
Yeah.
Okay, so very, very generically, right? Most law firms operate on a hierarchical basis, which is that the more number of years that you accumulate under your belt, the higher you promote. At the start of your legal career, you first have to do a training contract, right? A training contract is mandated under the Singapore Legal Profession Act. You have to do at least 6 months if you're a local grad. If you graduated from NUS, SMU or SUSS, 6 months. If you're overseas grad, you have to do 1 year of training. Okay? As a trainee, you are you get Saikang warrior. Although I know
part
that
of the process, right? To just
it is part of it's part of the process, and I know that the Law Society is looking into or in fact they've already looked into how to improve trainees like the mentorship program for trainees, and you know, a lot of lawyers take training very seriously. It's traditionally meant to be the period where as a trainee you're mentored and you're sort of like an apprentice to a senior lawyer, and you know, that's when you learn how to become a good lawyer. And yeah, so it's really, I mean, I think to call it a second career is kind of like not doing it justice, because what you're really doing is learning and being mentored, you know, to become a good lawyer. After finishing your training, you get called to the bar, which is always a joyous occasion. Yes, I really enjoyed the day that I got called to the bar. After that, you typically will start off as an associate in a law firm, right? Associates, I think, would usually stay as an associate for maybe 3 or 4 years, and then after that you get promoted to senior associate. Where I think you continue being senior associate for maybe 3 or 4 years. And this obviously differs from firm to firm and from, you know, person to person. After that, you know, you get made a salaried partner or a junior partner or associate director. The terminology depends on which firm you're in, but you know, you are sort of given, I think, added responsibilities because you are seen by the outside world as a partner, and you are sort of learning how to become, you know, how to grow the business and how to mentor young lawyers, and then you know, if you're great, you make it to equity partner, which is what every lawyer I think aspires to be at some point.
Got it. Can I ask, right, in terms of, let's say, when you reach a senior level, like associate director, would it be right to say that they are, like, the higher up you go, the less involved you are with the actual law work, and you're doing it more from a strategic point of view, like building the business on a sense? It's like the higher you go, the more detached you are from the actual practicing of, let's say, going to court. Is it something like that? Would it be right to say that?
Okay. I don't think so, actually. So in my experience, and I think I've been very lucky to have like very, very good bosses. In my experience, the more senior you are, the more responsibilities you take on, not just in terms of like strategic, like, you know, growing the business, bringing in more clients, but you also, okay, a lot of the bosses that I work with also actively sort of, they actively look at, you know, the work product that's being produced, and they do actively read it, review it, make sure that whatever's being submitted to the court or the tribunal is a good work product that the client and the lawyers and the tribunal will be satisfied with, or like that, that everyone can see is a respectable work product.
So in a sense, I mean, okay, not to be like so calculative lah in terms of like working hours. So in a sense, because my impression, right, of some careers, right, the more senior you go, right, that let's say, yeah, that's the reason why I asked you, the more detached you are from the actual work itself. So it seems that even though you are like more senior in the law firms, right, there's still a responsibility that you have. Then in that sense, like, is it right to say that the working hours, in a sense, will never go away in terms of this rigor and hustle? So, like,
Yeah.
because they already have so much responsibility more than you, right? Then if you let's say, oh, I want to change something, then still need to check it for you, right? So, so does it mean that the working hours, when the work effort, I would say working hours, because when people say working hours, then people get a misconception. But the hustle that is needed to put in, right, is even more for a senior person in the company.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
oh my gosh. Okay. That's quite interesting.
I think the unfortunate fact is that the more senior you are, the more responsibility you take on, and your clients will directly. Okay, as a junior associate, I do directly interface with my clients, but if there's something like that needs to get done on a weekend, or if it's like a very urgent and sensitive matter, the client is not going to come to me, because if the client comes to me, I'll just call up my boss and ask my boss, hey, how to do, right? The client is most likely to go directly to the partner. And yeah, so I would say as the partner, your responsibility doesn't actually go down, it actually increases. I think, measuring it by working hours, I'm not sure if that's the best estimate, because some things are not measured by the number of hours that you have to put in, but the amount of responsibility or accountability that you bear, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, I think, I learned quite a little bit about being a lawyer, right? Last thing, is there anything else you think it's useful for someone out there, right, who is intending to take this path? Because it's definitely something not easy. Any last words of wisdom?
Wow. Okay, I would actually recommend a website. So when I was in law school, a batchmate of mine, her name is Grace, she set up a website called Letters of the Law. I think it's lettersofthelaw.com, but I'm not entirely sure.
I'll link it in the video description.
So what it is that, Grace, she did an amazing job of collating letters from senior members of the profession. And they all wrote a letter to their younger self from law school. And the purpose of that project, I think, started out because it was a way to encourage law students on how to get through the period of law school, by looking forward to what the ultimate purpose or what the ultimate meaning of, why you're studying this. Is it because in the future you want to help somebody, or in the future you want to have a very meaningful career, that kind of thing. Yeah. So I would totally advise any current law student or aspiring law student to check out the website. Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were going to refer them to like some like study materials, like some
No.
So yeah, it's a very different twist, like how the emphasis is on like the purpose of why you became a lawyer, and I think that's very, very nice. Okay, Xiaohan, thanks so much for running through very, very basic questions. I really still don't know a lot in terms of law. Okay, moving on to the second. I really hope it will be useful to someone, and I really do think that it provides like a 101 to what's to come for future lawyers, right? So I hope you can share this with your juniors. For context, right, Xiaohan is from the best JC in Singapore, I would say, or Raffles Junior College. So there's definitely a lot of lawyers from there, I guess. Okay, sorry. Why SAF Corps?
It's actually surprisingly related to law school. So when I was in law school, right, I joined this competition. So in law school, a big part of many law students' life is mooting, mooting. And what this is sort of like, I think it's sort of like a debating competition, I think, to a layman. What a law student is supposed to do is to sort of argue before a mock tribunal or mock judge. and argue a certain case for a hypothetical client. So most moot competitions are like, there's a problem, right? And then like school A is representing the plaintiff, and then school B is representing the defendant, and then there's many rounds, and then then the judges decide who is the most competent team, right? So when I was in law school, I took part in an international mooting competition. It's called the Jean Pictet. That's JEAN hyphen PICTET. The Jean Pictet is an international humanitarian law moot. And for those who don't know, the international humanitarian law is a law of war. So I think most boys or most guys in NS would have learned that there are certain things that you can and cannot do in war. I have heard that what you are taught in NS is like, the first thing that you do is to shoot at people's feet, and you can't shoot the person directly, something like that.
I vaguely remember.
Yeah, so international humanitarian law is actually a set of the foundation of it is a set of international conventions, international treaties, which were entered into by all states in 1949 and I think 1971, following World War II. And basically the intent was that all the states in the world, well, most of them anyway, decided that in order to prevent the atrocities of World War II, we will have these rules in war in place so that we won't have unnecessary suffering on innocent people during war. So a lot of these laws deal with like how to protect civilians in times of war, how to certain weapons are allowed or disallowed because they cause unnecessary suffering. How to treat injured combatants, for instance, lah. Okay, so this is an entire set of law where you don't have only those conventions that I mentioned, but you also have there were a lot of other subsequent conventions and a lot of conventions before that. I'm sure everyone will be familiar with ongoing nuclear arms talks or nuclear arms treaties. And these will also sort of fall within the scope of what's considered international humanitarian law because they are supposed to restrict the use of weapons. Yeah. Okay. So I went for the competition. It was great. It was a lot of fun. The best fun that I had in the whole of law school. And we didn't win. We actually didn't even get into the semifinals. But I developed a very, very strong interest in warfare and I wanted to kind of experience what it was like in the military. I mean, I think this thought wouldn't normally come about if I was a citizen in any other country. But the fact is that in Singapore, half our population has gone through NS, and I just kind of felt like, I've really learned. I have an interest in international humanitarian law, and I kind of want to learn what it's like. And I know that it's something is accessible. I know that it's something that is accessible to me because the guys around me talk about NS all the time. So they're always talking about like guns and shit. So I was like, hey, I also want to try it. Yeah, that was how it started.
Would it be right to say that if you have not went for this competition, you wouldn't have went for it?
Yeah, I think I definitely wouldn't have had like the motivation to go and sign up because the sign up process is quite long. It took me a year, I think, from the time when I submitted my application to actually going for the basic training. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. For those people who are, let's say for someone out there, right? Yeah, I mean, it's the same old question, but what was the expectations and what was the realities, and how were they different?
Let me think. Okay. I think the only thing that I really expected was that I would go through a lot of physical hardship. Honestly, it was not that bad. But I have to say, okay, I know a lot of guys will come and tekan me after this. I have to say that what we went through, right? Basically, okay, what we went through was 2 weeks of basic training. Within those 2 weeks, right? The first week is we had well, there was like a general orientation. There was introduction to IPPT. Like we actually did IPPT exercises, except for the run, which I think was 1.6 click instead of 2.4. We did SOC, but that wasn't a timed SOC. It was just like a, everyone just like, let's try out the SOC. This is the first week. So we also did prep for our field camp the following week, and we did prep for our live firing. I'm definitely missing out a lot of stuff here. Yeah, there was a lot there was a lot of stuff crammed into those 2 weeks, because the next week we did live firing in the range. Okay, wait, first we did the simulated firing, the one like the computer simulated one. Then we did live firing in the range. And then we also had a 3-day 2-night Tekong field camp. And I, like, for the life of me, I don't know how we managed to squeeze everything into 2 weeks. Like, it was super jam-packed. Yeah, so back to expectations and realities. So I only expected it to be very tough. What I didn't expect was that the regulars who were accompanying us were super cool, super nice, and like they were basically like role models lah. Like after I finished the 2 weeks of training, I was like, shit man, I want to sign on. I want to be as cool as them. Like no joke, like really.
Oh my gosh! Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, how so? Like role models? Could you share more a little bit about that? Like what did they do in that sense? That wow, me inside. Oh my gosh! Okay.
So our platoon commander. Okay, so there are 2 platoons, right? Our platoon commander. There are 2 platoons because there's one male platoon. The male platoon is made out of PR. I think PRs or non-citizens who want to do it lah. As in, I think because they feel a sense of belonging to Singapore. Then the other platoon is all girls, and we are mostly Singaporean lah. Yeah, so our platoon commander, she's very cool lah. She's just like, those kind of like a very no nonsense exterior, like will really just tekan you and shout at you if you do anything wrong. But then if you get to like talk to her like during meal times or during downtime, right? Then you talk to her, then she's actually damn nice. She's very cool. Like even now, because we have like a WhatsApp group, right? So even now, like somebody in the group was like, "Oh, my bag broke." Like the black messenger bag, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the PC was like, "Oh, can you take a photo? Like you show me, then maybe I can help you fix or something." Like it's just like it's just like the very shy kind of like, outside exterior like tough as nails, but then when you get to know her, she's actually very nice. Yeah.
Got it. So she is a regular, like in the sense she's a PC, right?
She signed on. Yeah, she signed on. I think everyone who was with us had signed on. Also, I think like everyone.
There were no NSF commanders in a sense, is it?
Not that I recall. As in, yeah. So the leaders. So we had an OC. We had a CSM, we had the platoon commanders, then each of us had section. There were 4 sections, then we had section commanders. All of them were regulars, I think.
Got it. Of all the jam-packed experiences in the 2 weeks, right? I know it's like trying to sum up everything in just one small comment. Of all those activities, right, what was the one that stood out to you the most?
I think the field camp is probably like the most memorable lah.
What's so memorable about the field camp?
Just the fact that it was a freaking field camp. And like,
could you paint it for people who haven't went through it? Because I know what you mean, but yeah, could you paint me a picture of like what is a field camp for people who don't have an idea? Like because the things that you pay attention to, right, would probably be different from the things I pay attention to. So from your perspective, what was the most, let's say, interesting things about the field camp, most jarring things, most memorable things? Yeah.
So field camp, biggest thing is, my god, the field pack. so, all of us, okay, the most of us who are not that fit, right? To pick out our field pack, for those who don't know, like it's basically the only the entire 3 days, 2 nights worth of stuff that you have to carry around from Singapore all the way to Kong, and then you have to lug it everywhere. I never did weigh it, but I think it's about 20 kg, I think. To pick up my field pack, I actually had to sit on the floor and then put on the straps and then stand up. And I don't think that's how you normally put on a field pack.
You'll be surprised, Xiaohan. No, that's normal.
Yeah, then the PC was like, "Wow, you all look like you all are mealworms wriggling on the floor," because all of us were trying to get up, right?
Oh my.
Yeah. Also, I guess a physical exertion aside, okay, fine. Physical exertion was quite a lot. The fact that we couldn't bathe, but I think it was very cool that we learned how people actually keep themselves clean in the field. I never knew, the soap things, these sheets of paper which are soapy. Like when you put a bit of water, then they become soapy. Then you can scrub, right?
Yep.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I think so.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was very cool. I don't know.
Got it.
Yeah.
Is there any other things that was memorable? Did you have to dig a shell scrape, or was there any what was the process about? We
had to dig a shell scrape.
For our boys to men, or at least what I went through, they'll really tekan us, shell scrape, then they'll give us a letter. Is it the same process?
Yeah, they did tekan us. Our shell scrape, we also had to dig lah, but then I'm told that what I experienced was a lot less a lot less strenuous than what my brother went through. Apparently, so my brother was telling me because my brother just did NS last, he did his BMT last year. So for him, the soil was very hard, and then also he had to sleep in it. For us, the soil was quite soft, and I didn't have to sleep in it. We slept on the ground sheet outside. Yeah. So I would say we had to dig a shell scrape, but it's probably not as difficult as what most NS boys have to go through.
I mean, no, I don't think you should discount yourself for that, because when it comes to soil, other factors, I mean, there's a lot of other stuff, and some of my friends have dug up some weird things in shell scrapes, but I won't go into that. But in terms of how have you changed before and after?
Wow. I think I would say after, right, a few things. One, I have a lot of increased respect for anyone who has gone through NS. And I think as a girl in Singapore, you kind of grew up hearing all these stories, but when people talk about dig shell scrape very tough lah, whatever, then maybe your typical reaction is just dig soil only, what? But if you actually go and do that, it's actually quite tough lah. And then because I only had to do 2 weeks, but every Singaporean boy has to go through 3 months of BMT and then do 2 years of NS. So yeah, respect for Singaporean boys. The second thing would be that I actually really wanted to sign on. Okay, I think I've already mentioned this just now.
Okay, wait. We need to talk about this. What was the thought process when you considered signing on?
It was wow, shit, I had so much fun.
This decision was an accumulation of all your, it all started from law school. Then I find it fantastic that you have that kind of motivation to merge the kind of theoretical knowledge that you appreciate with the real experience that you could have. But to arrive at the conclusion of signing on, I'm not against signing on, but I'm just interested in your thought process of, I'm very surprised of why you would say that.
Okay, I feel there were a few things that appealed to me about I won't say signing on, but I think about being in the uniform services. Okay, I'm not even saying armed forces because my brother is in the SCDF, and I think what he's doing is pretty cool. And maybe there's also a consideration, right? Sign on SCDF. So there are a few things that I like about it. One is the physical training. I am somebody who enjoys, I like to exercise, I like to run. It's not that's not a current part of my job. Like it's something that's extra to my job. And I think it'd be great if every day I have to do PT. I don't know, because I really want to do it every day, like on my own free time, right? And I think I'll enjoy it if I had to do it as part of my job. I don't know. I think the other thing is that I think it really has. I think it really has to do with like the role models that who were sort of like assigned as our section commanders, PC, our OC during SFVC. Like, yeah, they kind of like they're just like great like leaders and like great people. And yeah, I feel like the leadership that I saw, I'm not not necessarily representative of what every single regular is like, but the leadership that I saw, I was quite inspired by them lah.
Got it.
Yeah.
And for context, right, I remember I had a conversation with you. I'm not sure if it's before you entered the SAF Corps or after you entered the SAF Corps. Did you have this habit of exercising before? Because I remember I asked you a question before that, do you exercise? And you told me no. But I think like exercising is something now that's part of your daily routine. Is it a habit that you picked up from the SAF Corps in terms of being physically fit?
No. I started exercising like properly, I think in like 2017.
Okay,
yeah,
so
I started
ago.
before SAF. Yeah, but definitely I feel like in any office job, right? It's not very healthy lah to just sit in the same place and stare at the screen for like 8 hours. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, Xiaohan, thanks so much for sharing everything, right? Is there any last things that you would tell someone who is considering to go for this SAF Corps? And I mean, I think I asked you this question before, but would you think that everyone should try it?
Yes. Okay. Sorry. Very unpopular opinion, but I think girls should also do it when yes.
Okay, so that is probably another podcast of its own already. But yeah, but at least from my perspective, it's just a 2-week commitment, and yeah, it's something interesting. Honestly, I'm not sure I would do the same if I was a lady, but yeah, I mean, okay, what would you say to, let's say, to girls in general, right, who totally don't have that thought to try this out? Is there anything that you say to, let's say, someone, or to encourage her to try this out?
I'm trying to think of what else to say apart from just do it, because I realize that's not very encouraging, or that won't persuade somebody who doesn't want to do it.
Wow, thinking like a lawyer. I like.
I think something that I've maybe not really touched on in this discussion is that part of the reason why I also really wanted to join is because I grew up in a family of 2 brothers, and I kind of always felt that how me as a girl is treated compared to how my brothers are treated, or for that matter, how girls in general are treated compared to how guys in general are treated. I feel like there's some discrepancy there, and I felt that part of it is to do with, I think, the perception that girls may not be as tough, or girls may not be as able to withstand physical hardship. And that was also a reason why I wanted to join the SFVC, to kind of, I can't say that it's to prove people that girls can do it too, because the fact is I only did 2 weeks and it's nothing compared to the guys' 2 years, right? But it's in a way to also prove that, I can do it even if it's only just for 2 weeks. And I would say that if, as a girl, if you were a girl, I would tell you, if you're ever told by anybody that, oh, you cannot do it because you're a girl and because you're physically weaker, or you're not as strong as a guy, then I would tell you totally go for the 2 weeks, because after doing the 2 weeks, you feel like an absolute champion. And you can also like tell people like, hey, I did this. It's not
Yep.
not to show that you've done as much as the guys, because it doesn't. I think the comparison just doesn't add up. But just to show that you can do that and that, if given the opportunity, you are definitely able to have as much potential, as much physical or mental strength as any other guy.
Xiaohan, I think you're discounting yourself too much, man. I can bet, right? You're physically fitter than a lot. I mean, okay, when you're in the army, you see a lot because you talk about physical fitness, right? I mean, I'm from my perspective, I'm very biased as well. I'm sure you're. I don't really think it's a topic of. I mean, I don't think physical fitness is a. I think a lot of girls in general are fitter than guys in general, and I think you probably run much faster and longer than me as well. Okay, but that's another thing for another topic, right? Okay, ending of this podcast, it has been quite a long conversation, right? What's the best advice have you ever received? Okay, maybe let's
anyone.
Okay, let's segregate this into two things. What's the best advice have you received when you're in the SAF Corps, and what's the best advice have you received in your career in being in the law industry?
The first thing that came to mind was like the SAF Corps. The first thing that came to mind was, the chin strap on the helmet, right?
Yeah.
It's supposed to be on your chin, right? I think got one time, as in like during field camp, I got taken damn badly because my chin strap was like here, right? And then the OC like made everybody do push-ups because my chin strap was here. So when you said most memorable advice, that's what I thought about.
Wear your chin strap properly, is it?
Yeah. Wear your chin strap properly. It's not everyone gonna.
On a more macro theme, is just don't do something that will get others into trouble, lah.
Yeah, but yeah.
Got it.
I mean, I think for the SAF, it's just like always watch out for your buddy. Yeah, I had a great buddy. She always watched out for me.
Got it. Best advice in the law industry.
Wow, this one tough. I have a lot. Actually, I have an email inbox where in my email where when somebody gives me good advice, I'll kind of send it as an email to myself. Then I'll save it.
Wow. Okay.
that is not the good. I mean, that's not the advice itself, but
but that is good advice. Like, right?
Yeah, I've received a lot of good advice. I mean, partly because, if because people, if you have good mentors like I do in my firm, they tend to dispense advice, and it takes up time for them to actually draft the email to you or sit you down and tell you, this work product can be improved in these ways. Because for the partner, it's a lot easier for the partner to just directly edit on the document, right? But for the partner to actually sit down with you and go like, okay, this is how you can improve, and this is what you should do next time, takes a lot of time for them. Okay, so sorry, that's probably like the best. I think the best advice that I've received is, which I'm not sure who gave it to me, at least the best advice that I follow by is that the bosses that you work with or the mentors that you have are probably like the most important consideration when you're deciding which firm to go to, which path you want to take.
Got it. Very nice. What's the worst advice have you received
in my life?
Okay, maybe let's keep this general. What's the worst advice have you received in life?
Oh, well, okay, this is not really advice, but like, I think this is more like relationship. It's more to do with relationships than law or
got it.
SFC. Yeah, but I think when you're in a relationship with somebody and they tell you to give up, things that you enjoy, or give up, or like sort of stop hanging out with people that you like to hang out with, that's very, very bad advice. Don't ever take it.
1 year from now, what tangible things would you want to happen that will make it the best year for your life?
I hope to be able to find some clarity in what I'm doing. So after all that I've said about being a lawyer and everything, I think at the end of the day, as a junior lawyer, you do get quite stressed out, and you sometimes might not be able to see clearly whether or not this is the path that you want to take for the rest of your life. And yeah, I hope to be able to have some clarity on where I eventually want to end up, career-wise, also relationship-wise, also just be able to know like what's the goal that I'm working towards.
So in a sense, it'll be the best year if you know what you're going to do for the next 10 to 20 years.
Yeah.
Got it. I think that's a question that all of us ask ourselves, right? Okay, Xiaohan, thanks so much for joining me on this podcast. I know this is a little unconventional. I really thanks so much for taking the time to do this, right? If there's any listeners out there, right, who might be interested, maybe a JC kid who is interested in what you're doing, right, or anyone who has any questions about SAF Corps, don't message Xiaohan about that. You can go to the website. But how can people reach out to you if they are interested?
They can just email me or text me, I guess.
Are you comfortable with sharing your email? Okay, I'll just leave your. Where are you most active on? Instagram, LinkedIn?
LinkedIn. Probably LinkedIn is the best platform because I will be able to get messages from people that I'm not connected with, I think.
Thanks so much for joining this podcast, and hope to see you soon, and hope this COVID thing will be over soon. And thanks so much, man.
Thank you.